You are. It's the moment we've been waiting for. Long or short, it's the moment we've been waiting for. And in order to introduce His Grace properly and appropriately, I'm going to ask Father Lawrence Barriger, who is representing the Diocesan Consistory and the Board of Trustees, to please come to the dais.
Your Grace, Bishop Gregory, Your Eminences, Slava Sisters, to share you a very brief story about St. Anthony the Great. St. Anthony was regarded as the founder of the monastic life. According to his biographer, St. Athanasius, he lived to be 105 years old. He was born when the church was under a period of persecution and ended his life when it had already become the state religion of the Roman Empire. And as his fame in Egypt grew and spread to the empire, people becoming Christians sought him out, coming from all over the empire. One day, 3 pilgrims came to meet him, and he received them in his cell. 2 of them were asking him questions and listening carefully to his answers. The 3rd just sat in silence. Finally, St. Anthony said, "You've come such a distance, don't you have anything to ask me?" And the 3rd pilgrim replied, "No, Abba, it's enough for me to simply be here, to see you and listen to you." Many months ago, we had a meeting with one of many meetings in His Eminence Archbishop Demetrius in New York City. And we were in a point of frustration in the consistory. We actually had come up with no candidate to succeed our beloved Metropolitan Nicholas. The Archbishop said, in a very pensive way, "I have a priest who told me he would go anywhere the church needs him to be." Several months later, I got a summons from my Chancellor, Father Frank, for the consistory members to come to Johnstown to meet with a priest who would go wherever the church needed him to be. And on entering that meeting, I felt like that 3rd pilgrim. His Grace probably doesn't remember it, but I didn't ask any questions. When I came into the room, I had that same ineffable presence of the Holy Spirit that I often felt in the presence of Metropolitan Nicholas. And I knew in my heart that the search was over. And of course, as the word came out that we had a candidate, people were calling as a member of the consistory, asking my opinion, and I shared my opinion with them. And then as His Grace Bishop Gregory got around the diocese a little bit, people started calling me and telling me what I'm sure many of you will say as you get to know him. I felt like St. Fotini. St. Fotini was the woman at Jacob's Well, the story that the Samaritan woman read during Pascha. You recall that her neighbors said to her, "We no longer believe because of what you said. We've seen and heard on our own." In the same way, people began to tell me that. We no longer believe because of what you said about Bishop Gregory. We have seen him and heard him for ourselves, and I'm sure all of you will come to share that sentiment. And at this time, I'd like to ask you to stand and welcome His Grace, our Bishop Gregory.
The clock says 5:31. The Archbishop left an hour ago. We're still here. Your Eminences, Your Graces, Reverend Fathers, Panes and Presbyteres, and all lay people. Slava Jesus Christus. Not bad for a Greek boy. When I met with the consistory after I had made a clandestine trip to Johnstown, I met only with Father Frank after the Archbishop invited me to New York, and he wanted to talk to me about the American Carpatho-Russian Church. In my mind I was going, who are they? I knew something about them from seminary, but I didn't know a whole lot. I knew of Metropolitan Nicholas. I had seen his picture many times with the scope of bishops and other events that were happening. And so you weren't totally unknown, but I didn't know a lot. I met with Father Frank. He showed me the cathedral. He showed me the diocese building. He showed me the bishop's residence. He showed me the seminary. When the seminarians were in chant class so that they wouldn't see me visiting the school, because then the rumors would start. Someone has come. Someone saw me and very quickly informed the Greek chancellor in Pittsburgh, my friend, and he called and said, have you been to Johnstown? I said, where is Johnstown? He goes, to Pennsylvania. Rumor has it that you're being interviewed for dean of the seminary. I said, no. Father George, my dear friend, didn't ask any other questions, and so I offered no other answers. After meeting with Father Frank, and he showed me everything, he says, what do you think? And I says, nice place. What do you think about coming here? I says, it's your decision, not mine. You'll need to meet with the consistory, those priests that advise the bishop. I said, set it up, if you choose to. And so I went back to New Orleans. Nobody knew I was traveling back and forth. Nobody. Metropolitan knew. Even my parents didn't know. They didn't know till June. I had been working on this since January because it was church business, and I don't share things with my family they don't need to know till it's time. Right, Mom and Dad? And so I went back because the consistory was having a trustees meeting, and in the afternoon I met with the priests. So I walked down, and there they are in the basement of the diocese house. They're sitting there in a very nice place. I passed out my business cards. They had my bio. We said our hellos. I said, what should we do? And no one really said anything. I said, well, I'll start. So I reached in my briefcase and pulled out a legal pad of 6 pages of questions. They thought they were going to interview me. I interviewed them. We asked all kinds of questions and answers. I wanted to know what this church was all about. How was it spiritually? How was it financially, physically? How was the plan? What were the priests making? What kind of houses did they have? How attentive were the people in the services? And they told me something like, blessed is the kingdom, and everybody's already in the pews. I was shocked. I don't know if you're applauding yourselves or that I was shocked. In the Greek Orthodox Church, if blessed in the kingdom is said and everyone is accused, and everyone says Amen, the priest will have a heart attack and fall down. But I had learned that this diocese, the Carpatho-Russians, were very faithful. And I was trying to figure out how they accomplished this. I don't know the answer, but I came up with this one myself. Probably there are some women who, if you came in late, they would scold you. And you learned as a child not to be late, and so you showed up on time. I'm probably going to work with the hierarchs of the GOA and loan out some of these women so that we can all start the liturgy together from the very beginning. That's what we should be doing. In any case, after 4 hours meeting with the consistory and all the questions and answers that I had, like, what are the internal threats? What are the external threats? Serious stuff. Father didn't ask a question because he was probably thinking in his mind, who is this guy that he asked these questions? But we were laughing at the end. In fact, it was a joyous meeting. I don't think I've had a 4-hour meeting with clergy like that. And at the very end, Father Frank goes, what do we tell our people if they ask us, is this guy going to try to make us Greeks? And I laughed, just like you did. And I looked at him and I said, you tell your people I will not make them Greeks if they try not to make me Carpatho-Russian. I laughed and decided it was time to go get dinner. And we had a beautiful dinner at the Holiday Inn, and we laughed into the night. And I think they knew what they wanted to do next. And they asked me, what do you think? I says, it's in your hands. If you think I'm the one, and you want to progress with this process, call the Archbishop. And so I think Father Frank probably got in touch with New York very quickly thereafter. And then I got the call from the Archbishop saying, I think they want to talk to you. I says, what do you mean talk? He says, I think they want to nominate you. I said, how can they nominate me when they don't know me? And so 2 trips to Pennsylvania. One to Camp Nazareth, which is a beautiful retreat center. I opened the parentheses here. I learned well here. All my years, I thought Camp Nazareth was from the GOA Pittsburgh metropolis. And I'm reading Father Lawrence's book on the history of this church, and I went, wow, look, they've got a Camp Nazareth too. And then I went, oh, now I get it. We've just been renting it from them. And so I proudly went to Camp Nazareth and met with the clergy there on Family Day. We liturgized together. I gave my first sermon to the Carpatho-Russian people. And within 24 hours, it was on the internet, and people were bombarding me with text messages and email messages and phone calls going, what are you doing at Camp Nazareth? I said I was just visiting them. 8 days later, we ended up in Taylor, Pennsylvania, St. George, where I met with more priests and more Bonnies who were asking me questions like I was having to defend my PhD thesis. What about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? And I answered truthfully, because the only way that people can know me is to ask me questions and for me to talk to them. And so we did. And then even after that, when some priests still hadn't had a chance to come to either one of the meetings in Pennsylvania, we had a conference call while I was at the summer camp of the metropolis of Atlanta. 12 priests from Canada and Florida and Illinois were asking me questions for over an hour. And so I answered every question asked me. And then they decided to nominate me by voting in the chapel, in the cathedral, with Archbishop Demetrius there. And because our retreat center is in the mountains of South Carolina, and the internet just doesn't give you that streaming video that you'd like to have, I'm sitting there going, what have they decided? I had no clue. Others had a clue. It was amazing. I got a text message from a priest from Florida. It says, you got it. I got what? You've been nominated, he says. I said, that's wonderful. Thanks for calling. Another priest called. A few minutes later, Archbishop was on the line. He had called my cell phone via Mark Airy, Father Mark, and he says, it was glorious. He says, they nominated you by 80%. I was stunned. He says, it's a miracle. I said, oh yeah, it's a miracle, all right. Thank you, Your Eminence. I must call my father now. I called my father in Charlotte. Congratulations, he says. I says, congratulations for what? You've been nominated. I said, how do you know? He says, I heard it from Greece. I said, where in Greece? He said, the island of Rhodes, your cousin, the Paraskivi, the Presbytera, saw it on the internet. She called to congratulate me. I said, that's great, Dad. Where's Mom? She's working. Let me call her. I call her at the restaurant where she's a hostess that day on a Saturday. Congratulations, she said. I said, for what? She said, you've been nominated. I said, how do you know? We saw it on the internet. Everybody seemed to know but me. It was a wonderful day, I have to tell you. My cell phone exploded. Text messages, emails, phone calls at a place in the remote part of South Carolina's mountains where the cell phones don't always catch everything the first time through. And so I'd clear it, and at 1 o'clock in the morning, it'd fill right back up again. And so for 48 hours, I did nothing but return messages and calls. Sunday afternoon, 4 o'clock, I think it was, Father, the Chancellor's call finally came through. He couldn't get through. He says, they nominated you. I said, thanks a lot. And so the process continued from there. Of course, the name went to the Patriarchate. They elected me, and you know the rest of the story. But as I said today in my enthronement address, the only way we're going to really know each other is when I get to come to your parishes, where I can see you eye to eye. We have things to do, and we will do them. But if you know me even a little bit, I enjoy working for the church. Church is a serious thing, but an enjoyable thing. Everything we're going to do, we're going to have fun as we do it. The only time we won't be laughing is when it's something like a funeral. Everything else is a joyous event. A wedding, a baptism, the liturgy, a vespers, a paraclesis service, summer camp, anniversaries to the priesthood, anniversaries for weddings, anniversaries for communities and their milestones. Everything will be joyous. You're going to learn real fast that I like to tell jokes. Life is too hard for us to make it even harder. And so we will laugh, and so that way we don't have to cry. But we're going to do what needs to be done. And I don't even know what that is exactly. But there's always things to be done. Always the next program. Always the next mission. We're not going to sit on our laurels. Whatever you have achieved, we celebrate. What else can we do? What more can we offer God? This is how we're going to work. I want you to keep me busy. I don't like working 40 hours a week. I like working 100 hours a week because it's not work, as His Eminence said. It's a joy. A hobby, he said. It's like a hobby. If you don't keep me busy, I'll get bored. And if I get bored, I'll get angry. And you don't want to see me angry. So let's do things. I'm no longer bishop-elect. That changed several hours ago. I'm full-time now for you. I didn't come here for you to serve me. I came here to serve you. And the only way I can serve you properly is for you to tell me what you need. And so send letters saying that, you know, a year from now we're celebrating our 100th anniversary. I need to know that now so I can put it on my calendar. Or this priest has 40 years in the priesthood. I need to know that now so I can put it on the calendar. We're not like some other metropolises that are sort of tight. The Boston metropolis of the GOA is very close. Within a couple hours you can hit any of the parishes. I didn't get trained in the Boston metropolis. I got trained in the metropolis of Atlanta. Atlanta, Miami, 11 hours by car. The itinerant preacher never flew anywhere. Always by car. Go to New Orleans, 8 hours from Atlanta. Go to the northern part, Wilmington, North Carolina, 6.5 hours. I travel. Somehow God, through His Eminence's efforts, taught me how to get in a vehicle and go. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to figure out where all of you live, and I'm going to come knocking on the doors. Everybody wants me to come this weekend. I can't come to all of you this weekend. That's the lay people. The priests are saying, take 2 years. Come in about 2 years. The ones that are thinking that, you're first on the list. The hour is late. Can you believe it? I've been talking for 20 minutes already. Again, the itinerant preacher talks. I would give sermons in every community, every week. And until they turned me off, I couldn't stop. But I've learned how to self-turn off. It's been a long day. Many of you are going to leave now and go across the street. Some of you are going to get on a bus and go for hours. Some of you are going to drive for hours with your families. It's dark outside. I'm going to be home in 5 minutes. You're going to be home several hours from now. And so I'm going to stop talking now. But trust me, when I come to your community, I'm not coming just for the Divine Liturgy, coffee hour, and then out the door. I will come. I will stay for several days so that I can meet with your leadership, with your catechism teachers, with your young people. Our kids are the number one thing. Brother Bob and Alexios always gave me the privilege of staying the whole summer when the kids were there. 5 weeks this past summer. 5 weeks. Those kids didn't know what to do with me. I didn't know what to do with me. But we're 3 weeks, I think, right, Father Frank? I'll be there. Your kids are going to know me better than you know me. I love the kids. And like I I said in my enthronement address, they are not the future, they're the present. The future are those that are not born yet. We have to take care of them now. Not when they get older. When they get older, it's too late. They will be pulled aside by society. When they come for their 40-day blessing, they're a part of the church. When they're baptized, they're full members of the church. Not only that, but they're stewardship members of the church. Full stewards. They don't have any money that day when they're baptized, but we take some of their hair and they contribute to the church. You know that all the kids that were baptized this year in New Orleans by me are members of the church and have paid up their dues for the year? Not all the adults can say that. Think about it. We need to be supportive of our church. We need to move into the 21st century as a church, globally, not just us, the Carpatho Russians. We need to consider what's going on, what God has given us, and what we can give back. And then we can do even greater things. And so again, thank you for coming today from very early, some of you. You came because you thought you weren't going to get a seat. I didn't have to worry about that. But you did. And I thank you for coming. So many of you have come. Carpatho Russians and a lot of the GOA from my home parishes in Charlotte, in Raleigh, and New Orleans have come. And so I thank all of you for coming. I love you all, and I look forward to my visit to your community very soon. Okay? Now, if you'll stand, we'll do a closing prayer.